All right, old cool NBA fans. Self-researched NBA facts. Got another video. If you guys are interested in player comparisons and getting into the nitty-gritty of it all, boy, I got it all. I've looked at these player comparisons from every angle. That's how I built my own ranking system, my own top 10, top 20 list, was to look at, you compare players from almost every scenario, every possibility. And if you're just going to start counting rings and MVPs, then I just think you're way off base. You know, the best example I like to use is Hakeem Olajuwon, who only has 2 championships. He really only had 3 or 4 actual legitimate shots at winning a championship. And I think, you know, like the '86 season, for example, when the Rockets lost to Boston, you know, they were severely outmatched. You know, a 51-win team against a 67-win team. Now, Houston was hot, and they were playing well. They were. They knocked off the Lakers, who were the defending champions, in 5 games. Won, you know, games 2 through 5. It was remarkable. It really was. I couldn't even believe what I was watching. I remember as a young kid, I think I was 15 when that was going on. And, you know, that was just unbelievable. And that's really when I started, you know, having a man crush for Hakeem Olajuwon. I was like, man, that guy's unbelievable. What a great player. But he just never had the help. You can't hold it against somebody because they didn't have a stacked roster, especially during that era or in the 90s. You know, if you didn't have a stacked roster, the Bulls were just going to run right over you. Hell, and most of the time, even when you had a stacked roster, you were getting rolled right over. So it's hard to hold it against Olajuwon. And I understand that the 2 years that they won championships was the 2 years Michael Jordan, you know, wasn't there. Well, 94 was his best season, individually and as a team, the best record and all that. Still not convinced the Bulls would have beat the Rockets in 94. Who knows? I mean, the Bulls probably would have won. They probably wouldn't have added all the players they added if Jordan had stayed there, but that's a topic for another day. We're never going to know. I don't deal in, you know, maybes, could be's, what ifs. What can I definitively prove? What actually happened? Not might have happened, could have happened. There's plenty of other content creators doing that. So anyway, I just stick to what I know. And in this video anyway, I wanted to do comparison of how players did when they played the cream of the crop, the very best in the NBA. And I don't just mean teams, but I'm talking specifically against the best players. And again, I used the same 15 players: Bill Russell, Will Chamberlain, Oscar Robertson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Hakeem Olajuwon, Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry. Now, those last 2, Durant and Curry, they're still playing. They probably still got a few more years left. Sorry, got sinus issues. Those 2 players don't really belong anywhere near a top 10. You want to put them in the middle of the top 20, around top 15 or 13 or so at best, fine. But they're not top 10. They're just not. They don't have the all-around game, you know, like some of the other all-time greats do. And anyway, how did each of these all-time greats do against players who finished in the top 5 in MVP voting? So, for example, in Michael Jordan, I just happen to know him the best. In 1985, they played against the Milwaukee Bucks. Terry Cummings finished 5th in MVP. That's a top 5. In '86, Larry Bird won the MVP. In '87, Larry Bird and Kevin McHale were top 5 in MVP. They were 3rd and 4th. So that would only count as one series, even though there was 2 top 5 players. So anyway, let's get into it. Bill Russell, in his career, when he played against players who finished in the top 5, not surprisingly, 26-1. That includes when he played Wilt Chamberlain multiple times, Oscar Robertson, a whole plethora of players, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, just a whole bunch of players. 26-1. They only lost ever 2 series. So it isn't surprising at all that he would have a record like that. Now, Wilt Chamberlain, when he played top 5 finishers in the MVP voting, and I know a lot of those would have been Russell's Celtics, 7-8. He had a losing record against the top 5 finish for MVP. Oscar Robertson, he didn't fare as well either. He was going up against Wilt and Russell. 1-7 against teams that had a player who finished top 5 in MVP. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, this one surprised me. 7-8. Actually a losing record against teams that had a player in the top 5 in MVP. I never saw that coming. The more I've dug into this research, I've come to the realization that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar might be a little overrated. I've had him 3rd. I'm starting to rethink that a little bit. I know about the longevity and I know all about his accomplishments, and they're great. But there's so many other factors to go into that. Like, some of the best players were in the ABA. Without Oscar Robertson or Magic Johnson, in the middle of the 70s there, yeah, he won some MVPs. Again, Dr. J was there, Rick Barry was there, some other players. He may not have won all those MVPs. And he had some letdowns. I think it was in 77 or 78 against Portland. They were the 1 seed, and they swept them. And he had Gail Goodrich. He had Adrian Dantley, Jamal Wilkes. 79 Seattle. Seattle smashed them. And they had a good squad. They had like Norm Nixon, Adrian Dantley, Jamal Wilkes, like I just said. Some of those guys in the Hall of Fame. And they got smacked. Magic Johnson also finished 5-6 against players who finished in the top 5 in MVP. Very, very surprised about that. I didn't see that coming at all. Larry Bird was 8-6. He did a little better. I think some of those might have been Michael Jordan. He beat him twice before he had a really good team. But 8-6, it's a decent record, about what you'd expect for somebody who's in the mid high top 10 all-time player. Hakeem Olajuwon, this one really surprised me. A guy who, has the least amount of help probably of any of the players on this list. I think he did. 5-5 against players who finished in the top 5 in MVP. And I think 1986, there was actually 2 players, Magic Johnson and Kareem. I think they finished 3rd and 5th in MVP, and he beat them. The Rockets did. That one there was very surprising. And again, I think Olajuwon is so underrated. The guy was a great player, just didn't get the help. But 5-5 against the top 5 finishers of the MVP. Remarkable. Michael Jordan, not surprisingly, did the best. He played against 18 total players who finished in the top 5 in MVP voting. 2 of them were on the same team in 1987. 13-4 against players who finished top 5 in MVP voting. Remarkable. And again, you could say that, it was just one good player and a bunch of guys. So every other player on this list was going against a top 5 finisher on a stacked team. We all know that's just not possible. Shaquille O'Neal was 11-6, did better than I thought he did. A lot of that would have been his time on the Lakers. I think that also 95 Bulls, Pippen was top 5 in MVP. That was probably one of his wins. But, hey, whatever. He was 11-6. It is what it is. Kobe Bryant was 11-8. He probably ran into Dirk, ran into Tim Duncan a lot. That was probably the team he played the most. Karl Malone, in the late 90s, he would have played probably Kevin Garnett at least once. But 11-8, that's a good record. Obviously, it's not top tier, but still pretty good. Tim Duncan, 8-8. All the winning he did when he went up against a player who finished top 5 in MVP, he was 8-8, middle of the pack, middle of the road. So again, going up against the top tier teams, this is kind of a separator a little bit for me. A player like Hakeem Olajuwon was 5-5, and Tim Duncan was 8-8. I'm just saying. There we go. Okay, LeBron James. How do you think he did against the top 5 finishers for MVP? Now, he never played 2 on the same team. That never happened. Looks like Duncan played a few of them. Let's see, I got here that he played against 20 top 5 MVP finishers, but he was 8-8, meaning that there had to have been, 4 or at least 4 series where there was 2 of them on the same team. Probably Shaq and Kobe, I'm guessing, is where a lot of that came from. LeBron James was 5-7 against top 5 players in the MVP, and he played 12, so there was no 2 on the same team. To me, that's kind of disappointing that his record isn't better. This guy, a good amount of people, 20-25% of all the people out there think he's the greatest of all time. To me, that's more evidence why he's not. He didn't raise to the level when he was playing these top players. And something I found interesting was Kevin Durant and Steph Curry in those years, and they were on Golden State. Neither one was in top 5. They kind of canceled each other out. They were like 6-7, 6-8, 6-9, that kind of thing in those years. And that didn't even factor into it. It wasn't. Don't they say it was Golden State? Because it wasn't. It was not Golden State. It was all the other teams that he played. Kevin Durant was 10-4 against top 5 finishers. And again, I'm sure that 2 of those right off the bat was against Cleveland. He was on Golden State. But that's a good record, 10-4. I was very, very surprised by that. Steph Curry was 11-2. That might be the best record overall. Now, this one I looked up, and it was a lot of one good player, be like a Damian Lillard on Portland, a James Harden on Houston, that kind of thing. That accounts for a lot of that right there. Not trying to take anything away from Steph Curry. Obviously, Golden State was a great team, but I just think that it's overblown a little bit. I also did some digging into how good the teams were in the mid-2010s. Wasn't a lot of great teams back then. There just wasn't. I mean, Cleveland probably was the second best team in the league at that time. Toronto popped up one year. San Antonio maybe popped up one year. But, even like Oklahoma City, who was up 3-1 on them. They were a 55-win team. Golden State was a 73-win team. That's a huge disparity. The one last thing I wanted to talk about were team rankings and who played who in the playoffs. Specifically, Michael Jordan and LeBron James. In Michael Jordan's career, he played 37 playoff series. Would you believe me, if their overall ranking, 22 of the 37 were in the top 5. You heard me right. 22 of 37. So more than half his opponents' overall rank was in the top 5. LeBron James, 53 opponents. How many do you think he faced? Top 5 ranked teams. 18. So about a third is what he faced. So Michael Jordan's over here facing about 60%, and LeBron James is over here at about 35%. So again, the competition is just not there. I just showed you who played more. Top 5 MVPs. Michael Jordan played 18 total players. LeBron James played 12. Michael Jordan was 13-4. LeBron James was 5-7. Michael Jordan played 22 top 5 ranked teams out of 37 series. LeBron James played 18 out of 53. Jordan played against more straight up and played in 16 less series. So, again, that's it for this video. All I want is just people to gain the knowledge of this stuff. You know, I spent so much time on it. I want people to know. I want it out there so people will stop this junk about LeBron James. Just stop it already. Anyway, that's it for this video, and I'll be doing more in the coming days. That's it for now.